In this video, I'm going to go through every single country in South America and evaluate whether or not it makes a good flag or a good place to move to. The entire continent, I'm going to do it right now. I am Caleb Jones, and this is Sovereign CEO. I teach people just like you how to set up location-independent businesses, move to a less bad country, or at least set up an international backup plan, and do all these things for very little money. And obviously a component of escaping the collapsing Western world, Australia, Canada, United States, Europe, a component of this is to go to a less bad country. And as I've discussed in prior videos, one of the best regions in the world, if not perhaps the best region in the world to do this, is South America, despite some of its downsides. So as I've talked about in the past, really quick on South America as a continental whole, South America is the world's crazy uncle. Sometimes countries in South America do fantastic, and then they collapse. And then they do great, and then they have a military coup. And then they do wonderful, do everything right, and then they collapse their currency. They go up and down and up and down and up and down, and you get the feeling from many of these countries that the people there kind of like it that way. They kind of like being insane. They kind of like the way they are, in particular countries like Argentina and Brazil. We'll get to those. You just have the feeling that many countries down there like to be crazy, like to be insane, and like to bounce up and down. So you'll have to be aware of this if you decide to relocate to South America or use South America or any country in South America as one of your primary flags. It's still a great place. Several of my flags, including my second home, is in South America, and I think it's a fantastic place. I highly recommend it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through every country in South America from a sovereign CEO standpoint, whether or not it makes a good flag and whether or not it makes a good place to move to. I'm going to classify these countries into three categories. These categories are recommended, which means I recommend you living there. That's a good place to go or use as a primary flag. The second category is called if you're brave, which means you could live there, but there are severe downsides you'll have to be aware of and mitigate while you're there. So if you're brave, if you want to take some risks, you can certainly live there. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't relocate there or use it as a flag. And the third category is not recommended, which means I do not recommend you live there or establish a primary flag there. Certainly, you could visit there and check it out if you'd like, but I don't recommend you relocating there. So I'm going to make this easy. I'm going to start at near the top of the continent and work our way down. So the first country we have to evaluate is Colombia. And as I've talked about many times before, Colombia is literally one of the fastest growing countries in the entire world. Its growth rates actually rival and surpass many countries actually in Asia, including Southeast Asia. Colombia also has some of the nicest people. It also has the most beautiful women in the world. It also has very mild weather, at least in many parts of Colombia, depending where you go. It's just win, win, win for Colombia. It is one of my favorite countries in the world. It is one of my economic flags. I don't live in Colombia. I don't have a residence in Colombia, but I am certainly using Colombia as one of my economic flags in terms of business and investing. Colombia is in the strongly recommended category. I do recommend Colombia. However, there is one caveat to Colombia, and that is that its tax laws are not as favorable as we'd like. So it's recommended with an asterisk in that you have to make sure you manage how much time you spend in Colombia per year and how you structure your business affairs so you don't get caught by their taxes. If you do this wrong, Colombia can tax you a lot of money. So you have to be very, very careful about this. There are ways around it. This is not a deep dive on Colombia. Maybe I'll cover that in a future video. But with that one caveat, Colombia is fantastic, highly recommended. The bottom line for Colombia in terms of cities in Colombia, if you're going there primarily for business or investing, you want to relocate to Bogota. If you're going there primarily for women or lifestyle, you want to go to Medellin. Those are two great cities. Medellin is fantastic. Bogota is fantastic, although there's some issues there, but it depends on, again, what your objectives are. So Colombia is a strong recommend. Next, we come to Venezuela. As you may or may not be aware of, Venezuela at the moment is pretty much a land of terror. It is pretty much the modern day equivalent of Mordor right now. You do not want to even visit Venezuela, in my opinion. So as of right now, and probably for the foreseeable, at least short-term future, Venezuela is a strong not recommended. I do not recommend you to have any flags there whatsoever. Down the road, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, Venezuela, I think, will snap back and become a great place. There's a lot of potential in Venezuela. The women are beautiful in Venezuela. There's a lot of natural resources in Venezuela. They may, like most South American countries, bounce back and turn around and do great again before it collapses again. So later down the road, I'll change my mind, but for now, that is a strong not recommend. Now we come to the three little baby countries in South America. They're all lined up next to each other. That would be Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana, and I'm probably mispronouncing those, I'm sorry. These three countries, and I don't like to generalize about countries, but these three countries, and technically French Guiana isn't even a country, it's a territory owned by France. These three countries are very small, the populations are low, the governments are very backward, the infrastructure is very low, third world, second world status. I don't see a lot of opportunity in any of these countries. I don't see a lot of strong reasons to relocate or use any of these three countries as flags. Certainly you could go there and check it out. I've heard from people that there are some parts of Suriname that are very pretty. But in terms of an actual flag to use financially or to move there or spend X amount of time per year, I really don't recommend any of these countries, but you can certainly check them out. But in my opinion, they are in the not recommended category. Now let's go over west to Ecuador. Ecuador is a fun, quiet, sleepy little country. And I have noticed that a lot of people tend to go there for retirement. I know a lot of Westerners, I personally know a lot of Westerners who go there to retire because it's a cheap place to live. The people are generally friendly. I have not heard a lot of complaints. I've never actually visited Ecuador myself, but I've heard a lot about it, done a lot of research. That is in my recommended category, although there are other places in South America I would recommend over Ecuador. So Ecuador is certainly not my favorite country. I would recommend Colombia, for example, far past Ecuador. But if you want a quiet place to retire to, a cheap place to retire to, kind of a stable place, Ecuador might be fine. Going south, we go to Peru, and Peru is a very large country in terms of its population. A very boisterous, hustle-bustle type country. I haven't done a lot of research on Peru, but from what I've seen and with the people I've talked to who live there and Westerners who have relocated there who seem to like it, I don't see any strong negatives of Peru. I think it is fine, so I will put it in the recommended category. But like Ecuador, there are other countries I would more strongly recommend than Peru, but I think Peru is fine. It's certainly on its way up economically. And I haven't heard any major complaints. I have heard from a few people that the Peruvians are not quite as friendly as other people in South America, which is surprising to me because everywhere I've been in South America, people are very friendly. So I have heard that, but I have not confirmed that. But in terms of overall, as a flag or place to relocate to, it is in the recommended category, a light recommendation. Now let's go over to the big elephant, the big baby of South America, and that is Brazil. Brazil, like Argentina, is completely insane. Brazil is a classic case study of an up and down and up and down and up and down forever country. There is a lot of economic opportunity in Brazil. There's a lot of economic activity in Brazil. It is a great place in terms of women and lifestyle if you're careful. However, there are lots of strong negatives of Brazil. The crime rates are kind of insane. The governments are insane. The people are a little insane and they kind of like it. Brazil is problematic if you want a more even keel life. So Brazil, to me, falls into the category of if you're brave and you want to manage the controlled chaos that is Brazil, certainly go to Brazil. You'll probably have a good time. If you want something more even keel, more easy, more stress-free, then I would not recommend Brazil as a place. It is strongly in the if you're brave category. Next, we come to Bolivia. Bolivia is a large, although very poor country. It's actually the second poorest country in South America. There's not a lot of infrastructure there. It's kind of down in the third world zone. But it is growing economically quickly, and there's a lot of economic growth that is occurring in Bolivia, very similar to Paraguay. And so I put Bolivia, again, in the if you're brave category. If you're willing to rough it, and you're going to kind of rough it if you live in Bolivia. It's going to be very similar to living in certain parts of Africa. If you're willing to rough it and really stick it in for the long haul and benefit from the economic growth of that country, that might work. If you're not willing to rough it, if you want to be brave, then I don't recommend it. That now brings us to probably my personal favorite country in all South America is Paraguay. Paraguay is one of my primary flags and my secondary home. I've discussed Paraguay a lot on this channel. Paraguay is a small, quiet, sleepy, landlocked little country. Not a lot of activity going on there. It is on the economic rise, but it's not a meteoric rise like Southeast Asia or Colombia. Crime rates are very low. People are very friendly. The women are cute. They're not gorgeous like in Colombia, but they're very cute. And if that's something that interests you, Paraguay is a strong recommended country. That is one of my primary flags. Now, some caveats about Paraguay. If you're there for the more exciting life, that's not where you want to go. I routinely get questions from guys saying, hey, when I'm in Paraguay, where's a cool place to go hang out at bars and clubs and dance and meet girls? If that's your priority, you don't want to go to Paraguay, you will be very bored. Paraguay is a very boring place. So if you want something that's relaxing, that's quiet, which is why I go to Paraguay since I live in Dubai, it's a nice contrast for me. Paraguay is fantastic. If that's not for you, there are better places, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, and so forth. But technically speaking, Paraguay is a strong recommended flag. That brings us all the way over to the West Coast to Chile. Chile was, for many years, the best country in South America. They were doing just about everything right there. Fantastic economic opportunity, doing a lot of things right in terms of the government and investing in all kinds of things. I have heard that the women are pretty cute and the women are pretty fun and the lifestyle is pretty good in Santiago. However, in the last few years, Chile's government has kind of screwed that up a little bit. They're kind of going backwards, very similar to the country of Georgia, where they were doing everything right and they turned a corner a few years ago and are now starting to screw up what they were doing right. However, that being said, it is still a strong recommended flag or recommended place to go to. I think Chile is great and will remain great for the long term, barring a few things you may not like and a few minor problems. But certainly if you have location-dependent income, sovereign CEO income, Chile is great. Now we come to another completely insane country, and that is the country of Argentina. Argentina is the other radically insane country of South America, where the economy goes up, then the economy crashes. Then it goes up and does great, and then it collapses. And if you look at the history of Argentina, it's just up and down and up and down and up and down. And like the Brazilians, you get the feeling from the Argentinians that they kind of like it that way, and they think it's fun to collapse their own currency and have military coups and have all kinds of problems after coming off periods of prosperity. Argentina is a very if you're brave place. Right now, their currency has collapsed. A lot of people are doing business in other countries, including Paraguay, to avoid these problems. And certainly you may run into currency problems if you're down there. Certainly you could mitigate that if you have location-independent sovereign CEO income in US dollars or euros or something like that. You could make it work, although your life down there will be a little colorful. Buenos Aires is one of the coolest cities in the world, and I mean that literally. It's an amazing, amazing place. I could never live there. I actually looked at living there at one point. It was just too chaotic, too many problems, traffic, the people who I like but are a little crazy. The airports are horrible. So I wasn't able to choose that as a flag, but Argentina will work very well for many of you. So I'm going to label that as an if you're brave country. If you're brave, definitely check it out. If you're not brave, do something a little more simple. The last country in South America is Uruguay. Uruguay is very good. A strong recommended flag, a strong recommended place to live. Uruguay is great. Now, just like Paraguay, Uruguay is very boring. There's not much to do in Uruguay, so if you're going there for the lifestyle or the women, I don't recommend it. You should go to Buenos Aires or something like that. Uruguay is more focused on guys focused on business or investing, or if you're an older guy and you want to retire or something like that, more quiet lifestyle, Uruguay is great. They're now calling Uruguay the Switzerland, and I agree with that metaphor. Uruguay is a great place. Really cool beaches too. Not bad, but it's not a very fun, exciting place, and it's not perfect. There are some things about Uruguay I don't like, but it is a strong, recommended country. So that's it on South America. If you would like a video where I do this kind of, although I buzz past countries much more quickly, in terms of regions all over the world, on where I think the entire world is going in terms of regions, you can check this video out, and I'll give you more information there. Otherwise, you should definitely subscribe to this channel, leave a like on this video, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.